A silent bell tolled at midnight, its mute cry heralding Lord Harrington's death in his locked study, a single gunshot shattering the stillness of Blackthorn Abbey. No sound, only secrets, each one a suspect, each shadow a lie. Welcome to the silent bell, a toll for the dead, a Hercule Poirot mystery where deception weaves tighter than the Abbey's ancient stones. Take a seat, sip your tea, and dive into the fog with us. If this tale grips you, hit subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Chapter 1. The Abbey's Grim Embrace. The dawn broke over Blackthorn Abbey like a reluctant confession, its grey light seeping through the mist to reveal a Gothic sprawl of turrets and gargoyles perched on Devon's desolate moors. Built in the 14th century as a monk's sanctuary, the Abbey had morphed over centuries into a fortress of faded wealth for the Harrington family, its stone walls heavy with the weight of old sins. Lord Reginald Harrington, the 82-year-old patriarch, had ruled it for decades, his iron will matched only by his love for late-night poker and cryptic relics. But on this September morning in 1932, the Abbey was no longer his domain. It was a crime scene, its master dead, and its silence louder than any scream. A Rolls-Royce crunched up the gravel drive, delivering Hercule Poirot, the Belgian detective whose moustache bristled with intuition, and Captain Arthur Hastings, his loyal friend whose tweed jacket seemed perpetually rumpled. Poirot stepped out, his polished shoes at odds with the muddy moors, his green eyes scanning the Abbey's facade like a chessboard mid-game. "Hastings, mon ami," he said, his accent sharp as a blade. "This place, it does not welcome, it warns." Hastings, tugging at his collar, nodded. "Looks like a tomb, Poirot. Telegram said suicide, but the family cries murder. Odd that." The summons had come late, a solicitor's plea from Exeter. Lord Harrington dead. Locked study. Family insists foul play. Urgent. Poirot, ever drawn to puzzles wrapped in fog, had packed his valise and his little grey cells, while Hastings brought his revolver and a thermos of tea. Mrs. Eleanor Graves, the housekeeper, met them at the oak doors, her frame sturdy as the Abbey itself, her grey bun tight as a drumhead. "Morning room, sirs," she said, voice like slate. "Family's waiting. Mind the rugs, older than the hills." The foyer smelled of wax and damp, armour suits glinting faintly as if guarding secrets. The morning room was a cocoon of wealth. Green velvet drapes, a marble hearth spitting sparks, a mahogany table set with untouched scones and silver teapots. The Harringtons sat like statues, each carved from different stone. Lady Beatrice, the widow, presided in black silk, her 65 years etched in lines around dry, piercing eyes. "My husband," she began, voice steady as a guillotine, "was found at dawn, shot in his study, door locked, key inside. The coroner says suicide. I say murder." Around the table were the heirs, a gallery of grudges. Edmund, 45, the eldest son, a barrister with a weak chin and weaker finances, gripped a brandy glass. "It's the bell," he said, voice clipped. "Father's study has a rope to the tower bell, rung to summon us, or his whims. Last night, midnight, it moved, creaked, but no sound. By morning, he was dead." Poirot tilted his head, intrigued. "A silent bell, monsieur? Most curious." Lydia, 38, the widowed daughter, spoke next, her auburn hair framing a face pale as moonlight. "We were all here. Edmund drowning in debts, me in my room, Victor skulking in the library, Aunt Millicent praying in the chapel." Her green dress rustled, a faint cigarette scent trailing her words. Victor Kane, the cousin, lounged in a corner, 32, dark-haired, his smirk sharp as his threadbare jacket. "Family squabbles, Poirot. Father was rewriting the will, cutting us all to ribbons." Millicent, 70, Beatrice's sister, clutched her rosary, muttering. "The devil's work," Beatrice elaborated, her handkerchief a prop. Reginald's study was locked tight, windows bolted, no signs of entry. His Webley pistol beside him, one shot to the temple. But that bell, it was his signal. Someone used it, mocked it, to kill him. Poirot settled into a chair, his small frame commanding the room. Madame, begin with last night's dinner. Words, glances, what knives were drawn. Edmund coughed. Father ranted about betrayal. Said he cut Lydia's allowance, make me executor, leave Victor the orchards. Charity, he called it. Millicent got the chapel silver. Lydia's laugh was brittle. He called my seances pagan folly, as if his gambling didn't sink us deeper. Victor lit a cigarette, exhaling disdain. He had secrets, London meetings, shady deals, blackmail maybe. Millicent's beads clicked. He mocked the saints. God judges. Poirot's eyes flicked to Mrs. Graves, hovering like a sentinel. Show me the study. She led them through corridors of faded tapestries, saints watching from woven threads. The study was chaos preserved. Bookshelves sagging with tomes on history and heresy, a walnut desk scarred by quills, and the bell rope, thick hemp, dangling from a ceiling pulley like a noose. Reginald's body slumped in a chair, blood crusting his temple, the Webley an inch from his hand. The door's lock was pristine, key in place, windows latched, no marks outside. Poirot knelt, noting the powder burn, the lack of residue on Reginald's trigger hand, and a faint bruise on his wrist. Recent, forceful, suicide, Hastings muttered. Poirot's moustache twitched. Non, the bruise protests. And the bell, why silent? He examined the desk. Ledgers showing debts. A burned letter mentioning the artifact. A journal open to a blank page. Ink wet. The bell knows, it read earlier in Reginald's scrawl. Poirot tugged the rope. It slid smoothly, but no peal followed. An eerie void. Mrs. Graves spoke from the doorway. Rang at 11:50, sir. Felt it in the kitchen. Pots shook. Thought he wanted tea. Found him at dawn, like that. Poirot nodded, filing alibis. Beatrice reading, Edmund bathing, Lydia with her Ouija, Victor in the library, Millicent praying. Solid yet porous. No one leaves, he said, voice soft as steel. This is no accident. A locked room. A silent summons. C'est un mystère magnifique. The family reconvened in the morning room. Tension thick as the fog outside. Poirot sipped tea, probing. The artifact, Lydia flinched. A chalice, medieval, from the Abbey crypt. Father bought it back last year, cost a fortune. Said it held power. Millicent called it cursed. The aunt crossed herself. St. Edric's relic. Unholy. Reginald used it for his investments, some London occult club. Victor snorted. Or blackmail. He dangled it over rivals' heads. Beatrice's voice was faint. He feared it lately. Said someone here wanted it, and him, gone. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And the bell? Inscribed? Edmund nodded. Tollo pro mortuis, toll for the dead. Father's jest, recast post-war. Poirot paced, mind spinning. The bruise suggested struggle. The silent bell, sabotage. He requested the bell tower. Jenkins, the chauffeur, led them up a spiral stair to a belfry thick with dust and pigeon droppings. The bronze bell, massive, bore a leather gag on its clapper. New, deliberate. Silenced, Poirot murmured, untying it. A deep toll rang, startling the house below. Hastings grinned. Killer gagged it to fake the pull, lure without sound. But whose hand? Poirot descended, noting the rope's direct line to the study. No remote pull possible, unless tampered elsewhere. Back in the library, among Victor's catalogued chaos, Poirot found a telegram. Chalice secure, buyer demands double. Exposure imminent, unsigned, reeking of motive. Victor, Edmund. He pocketed it. The coroner, Dr. Ellis, arrived, declaring suicide. Gun, lock, done. Poirot demurred, keeping the journal and pistol. As rain lashed the windows, dinner unfolded in the great hall, chandeliers casting long shadows. Conversation was clipped. Lydia's seances, Edmund's debts, Victor's smirks, Millicent's prayers. Beatrice retired early, pale as death. Midnight brought a creak, floorboards, not rope. Poirot, feigning sleep, trailed a shadow to the study. The figure, Victor, tried the lock, failed, cursed and fled, pipe tobacco lingering. Reginald's scent. Morning came. The constable, Wilkins, bumbled in, yielding to Poirot's charm. Interviews sharpened the puzzle. Edmund's bath alibi porous. Lydia's Ouija vague. Victor's library nap unproven. Millicent's vigil too perfect. Beatrice's reading a lie. Her book unopened past page 10. A letter arrived for Poirot, anonymous. Chalice hides the killer's mark. Crypt. The crypt was a vault of bones and chill. The chalice gleaming on an altar, its rim etched with VK. Victor's initials. Boyhood prank, he claimed, sweating. Thunder rolled. The study was breached, journal gone. Poirot smiled. We are led, Hastings. The killer dances. As night fell, he gathered them. The bell was gagged to stage a summons. The shot to mask murder. The bruise betrays force. The chalice. Key to greed or vengeance. A creak echoed at 11:50. No toll, no shot. Poirot's eyes burned. The game tightens. Tomorrow truth tolls. Chapter 2. Echoes in the Crypt. The morning after the crypt's revelation broke with a drizzle that turned the abbey's spires into glistening spikes. Each drop a reminder of secrets yet to surface. Hercule Poirot stood in the great hall, his polished shoes reflecting the flicker of candle sconces, his moustache a barometer of brewing suspicion. The chalice's etched initials, VK, pointed to Victor Kane, but the detective knew better than to trust a single thread in a tapestry so tangled. Captain Hastings, nursing a cup of lukewarm tea, hovered nearby, his notebook already thick with scribbled alibis and contradictions. That crypt gave me the creeps, Poirot, he muttered, glancing at the shadowed arches. Bones and relics. Place feels like it's watching. Poirot's eyes glinted, sharp as the abbey's gargoyles. Oui, mon ami, but it is we who must watch closer. The chalice speaks, but the crypt, it sings. The family gathered for breakfast in the dining hall, a cavernous space where tapestries of medieval hunts hung heavy with dust. Their woven stags fleeing arrows that never missed. Lady Beatrice presided, her black silk gown absorbing the light, her composure a fragile mask. Edmund slouched over his plate, fork pushing eggs into formations of unease. Lydia, in a sapphire shawl, sipped coffee with the focus of a woman dodging ghosts. Victor leaned back, cigarette smoke curling like a question mark. Millicent, rosary in hand, murmured graces that sounded more like curses. The air crackled with unspoken accusations, the missing journal a spectre at the table. Poirot, seated at Beatrice's right, broke the silence. Mesdames et messieurs, the chalice in the crypt. It bears a mark. VK, Monsieur Victor, a word. Victor's smirk faltered, his cigarette pausing mid-air. Told you, detective. A lad's prank, nothing more. Carved it at 16, sneaking cider and bravado. Father never cared. Beatrice's cup clattered against its saucer. Reginald cared about that chalice more than his own blood. He said it was power, leverage over men who feared curses. Her voice was a blade, slicing through Victor's nonchalance. Lydia's eyes darted to her brother. Leverage? Or a noose? Father hinted at debts, yours, Edmund, to some London shark. Did you beg him to sell it? Edmund's face reddened, his fist thumping the table. Lies! My debts are my own, not father's. He was the one meeting shady types. Night visitors, cloaked, slipping through the garden. Millicent's beads stilled. Blasphemers, all of you. That chalice is sacred, stolen from saints. Its curse brought this. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the squabble. The curse, perhaps, is human greed, but the journal, stolen last night. Who entered the study? No one spoke, eyes sliding away like oil on water. Mrs. Graves, clearing plates with the precision of a general, offered a curt nod. No one, sir. I locked the study after you left. Spare keys with me. Always is. Poirot's moustache twitched. Her loyalty was iron, but even iron could bend. He excused himself, beckoning Hastings to the library, where sunlight barely pierced the leaded windows, casting the room in a sepia haze. The shelves, chaotic from Victor's supposed cataloguing, held more than books. A hidden panel behind a tome on alchemy swung open to reveal a cubby, empty save for a scrap of velvet. Chalice-sized, dusted with ash. Reginald hid something, Poirot murmured, pocketing the scrap. Not the chalice, non. Something smaller, worth stealing. Their search was interrupted by a shout from the hall. Jenkins, the chauffeur, his face pale as the moor's mist, stood clutching a muddy envelope. "Found it in the garage, sir, under the Rolls tyre. Addressed to you." Poirot slit it open with a silver letter knife, revealing a single line in block letters. "The bell's rope hides the hand." No signature, but the ink matched the crypt's anonymous note. Hastings frowned. "Another riddle? Someone's toying with us." Poirot's smile was thin. "No, they fear us. The rope. Let us revisit." They climbed to the bell tower, the air thick with the musk of old wood and feathers. The hemp rope, thick as a man's wrist, hung taut, its frayed end brushing the study floor below. Poirot examined it, noting a faint smudge. Grease, not dust. "Machine oil," he said, sniffing. "From the garage, perhaps. Jenkins, you maintain the cars?" The chauffeur nodded, uneasy. "Aye, sir. Oil standard. Keeps the gears smooth." Poirot's eyes narrowed. The rope's pulley gleamed, freshly lubricated. Someone had ensured its silence worked flawlessly. Back in the hall, Constable Wilkins bustled in, his round face flushed from the moor's wind. "Mr. Poirot, toxicology's back. No poison, just whiskey in his blood. Normal for his lordship." "Suicide stands." Poirot waved this away. "The bruise, Inspector, and the gagged bell, they disagree. Fetch me the household staff's schedules." Wilkins, cowed by the detective's certainty, complied. The schedules revealed little. Graves in the kitchen, maids in the west wing, Jenkins in the garage, none near the study at midnight. But a gardener, young Tom, admitted to seeing a light flicker in the east wing, Lydia's quarters, at 11:45. "Thought it was her candles, sir. She's always burning them odd ones. Smell like flowers gone bad. Lavender, perhaps." Poirot filed it away. Lunch brought cold pheasant and hotter tempers. Edmund cornered Poirot by the sideboard, voice low. "Victor's lying about that chalice. He tried to sell it last month. Father caught him, threatened to cut him off for good." Across the room, Lydia overheard, her coffee spoon clattering. "And you, brother? Father knew about your gambling debts. Said he'd let the estate bleed before bailing you out again." Victor, lounging by the hearth, laughed. "Family secrets, eh? Here's one. Father's London club wasn't a cult. It was a front for laundering money. Ask Beatrice about his late-night calls." Beatrice, entering with a rustle of silk, froze. "Lies, Victor. Reginald's business was his own." Her denial was too swift, her eyes too guarded. Poirot requested a private word with Beatrice in the drawing-room, its brocade sofas sagging under the weight of old arguments. She sat, hands folded, pearls gleaming like tiny moons. "My husband dealt with unsavory types, yes. After the war he changed, saw enemies everywhere. The chalice was his obsession, a bargaining chip with men who paid to avoid scandal." She hesitated, then leaned closer. "Last week he received a letter. Burned it, but I glimpsed the seal. Red wax, a serpent crest. He said it was the end if it came again." Poirot's fingers steepled. "And this letter, where burned?" She pointed to the hearth, its great cold. He sifted the ashes, finding a wax fragment, red, serpent-shaped. "Merci, madame. The serpent strikes, but its venom reveals." Afternoon waned, the rain a relentless murmur. Poirot and Hastings ventured to the garage, a stone outbuilding where the Rolls-Royce gleamed like a knight's armour. Jenkins, polishing a fender, stiffened as they approached. "That oil on the rope," Poirot said, voice mild. "You serviced it?" Jenkins shook his head. "Not me, sir. Rope's not my job." But his toolbox held a can of machine oil. its cap loose. Poirot pocketed a rag stained with the same grease, his mind threading connections. A maid, Molly interrupted, breathless. Sir, the chapel. Miss Millicent's there, acting queer, praying, but loud, like she's arguing with God. They hurried to the chapel, a vaulted nook of stained glass and worn pews. Millicent knelt before a crucifix, her rosary swinging like a pendulum, her voice a fervent whisper. Forgive the thief, for they know not. She stopped, seeing Poirot, her face a mask of guilt or fear. You seek the chalice's sin, she said, rising. It's no relic, it's a debt, paid in blood. Her words hung heavy as Poirot probed. The theft, mademoiselle? Millicent's lips thinned. Reginald stole it from the crypt years ago, sold it, bought it back when guilt gnawed. Its return brought no peace, only threats. She clutched her beads, refusing more. Outside the moors darkened, the drizzle now a downpour. Poirot, undeterred, led Hastings to Lydia's east wing parlour, where her Ouija board lay abandoned, its planchette pointing to yes. Candle stubs littered the table, their wax pooled in patterns, lavender-scented, Tom's flowers gone bad. Mademoiselle Lydia, Poirot called, finding her in the hall. Your candles betray you. Were you in the study? She paled, shaking her head. I was here alone. The board. It spoke of death, but I didn't go near him. Her eyes were wide, but her hands trembled. A liar's tale, or a mourner's. Dusk brought a summons from Wilkins. A London solicitor, Mr. Crane, had arrived, bearing news of the will. In the morning room, Crane, a gaunt man with spectacles like owl eyes, produced a draft. Lord Harrington intended changes. Edmund executor, Lydia's funds halved, Victor's orchards conditional, Millicent's silver a pittance, unsigned thus void. Gasps rippled. Victor's cigarette fell, smouldering on the rug. So we're all paupers, he muttered. Edmund's face was stone, or free. Poirot watched, noting Beatrice's clenched jaw. She'd known, and said nothing. Crane added, he mentioned a trust for the chalice, to be revealed post-mortem. Papers are missing, likely with the journal. The room buzzed, suspicion a living thing. Night fell, the abbey creaking under the storm's weight. Poirot, in his guest room, reviewed his notes. The greased rope, the serpent seal, Millicent's cryptic prayer, Lydia's candles, Victor's initials, Edmund's debts, Beatrice's secrets. A knock came. Mrs. Graves, her face grim. Sir, the bell tower! Light up there just now. Poirot and Hastings raced up the spiral stair, finding the bell untouched, but a window unlatched, rain pooling on the sill. Below, a figure darted across the lawn, too dark to identify. The killer moves, Poirot whispered, his breath fogging the glass. They seek to bury the truth, or unearth it. Back in the hall, the family was roused, their faces a gallery of dread. Poirot faced them, his voice a quiet thunder. The rope was oiled to ensure silence, the chalice marked to cast blame. The journal's theft hides a trust, a motive deeper than greed. Someone here knows the serpent's name. Edmund stood, fists clenched. Enough games, Poirot. Accuse or leave. The detective's smile was a blade. Patience, monsieur. The serpent coils, but I see its scales. A creak echoed. Not the bell, but the front door, left ajar. Footprints in the mud led to the moors, vanishing into the night. As midnight loomed, Poirot lit a Gauloise, its smoke curling like the mystery itself. The chalice, the rope, the serpent, pieces of a puzzle, each a lie waiting to crack. Hastings, he said, exhaling. Tomorrow we dig deeper, into hearts, not crypts. The abbey slept, but its shadows did not. The silent bell's echo promised blood. Chapter 3. The serpent's trail rain lashed the abbey's ancient stones as morning broke, the sky a bruise over the moors. Hercule Poirot stood by a leaded window in the drawing-room, his silhouette small but unyielding, his green eyes tracing the rivulets like threads of a case unravelling. The serpent-sealed wax, the oiled bell rope, and the stolen journal pointed to a conspiracy coiled tighter than the storm's fury. Captain Hastings, ever the soldier, paced nearby, his boots scuffing the worn parquet. "That figure in the rain last night, Poirot," he said, voice low. "They knew the tower, knew the Abbey's secrets." Poirot's moustache quivered, a faint smile beneath. "Oui, mon ami. The serpent slithers close, but its tracks are fresh. Today, we hunt." Breakfast was a tense affair in the dining hall, the chandelier's light flickering like a faltering pulse. Lady Beatrice sat rigid, her black gown a void against the silver cutlery. Edmund toyed with his coffee, his eyes darting to the door as if expecting a rest. Lydia, wrapped in a grey shawl, stared into her porridge, her fingers twitching as if still gripping her Ouija planchette. Victor slouched, lighting a fresh cigarette, its glow a defiance in the gloom. Millicent, at the table's end, clutched her rosary, her lips moving silently. Prayer or plea? Poirot couldn't tell. The air was thick with unspoken blame, the serpent's seal a phantom between them. "Madame," Poirot addressed Beatrice, his voice cutting through the clink of spoons. "The red wax seal, serpent crest. You saw it on a letter." "From whom?" Her hand stilled, pearls clicking softly. "I don't know. Reginald burned it before I could read more. He said it was business," but his hands shook. Edmund snorted, breaking the silence. "Business?" Father's business was a tangle of threats. That seal, probably from his London cronies, the ones he fleeced with that cursed chalice. Lydia's head snapped up. Or the ones fleecing him. He mentioned a man, Crawley was it? Demanding payment for services. Father laughed it off, but his eyes were scared. Victor exhaled smoke, his voice lazy but edged. "Crawley's a thug, runs a gambling den in Soho. Father owed him plenty, maybe enough to kill for." Millicent's beads rattled. "Enough, speak of devils and they appear. The chalice brought this doom." Poirot leaned forward, his gaze pinning each face. "And the footprints last night, leading to the moors? Who fled the tower?" No one answered, but the silence was loud, fractured by the storm's growl. Mrs. Graves entered, her apron crisp despite the chaos, carrying a tray of scones. "No one left the house, sir," she said, unprompted. "I checked the doors, locked, save the front which you found ajar." Her flinty eyes met Poirot's, daring contradiction. He nodded, dismissing her, but noted her quick defence. Loyalty or something darker? He turned to Hastings. "To the moors, mon ami. Tracks fade, but truth lingers." They donned coats and ventured out, the wind tearing at their hats as they followed the muddy trail from the Abbey's front steps. The footprints, faint in the sodden heather, led to a copse of twisted yews, where they vanished near a stone well, its cover askew. Poirot peered into its depths, the water black and still. No body, no journal, he mused, but a hiding place perhaps. Hastings, ever practical, fetched a rake from the gardener's shed, probing the well's edge. A glint caught his eye. A silver cigarette case, monogrammed VK, half buried in the mud. "Victor's," Hastings said, holding it up. Poirot's eyes narrowed, or planted to seem so. The serpent loves misdirection. Back inside, Poirot summoned Victor to the library, its shelves a maze of neglected knowledge. The cigarette case lay on the table, its shine accusing. Victor's smirk faded, his fingers twitching. "Lost that weeks ago," he said, voice tight. "Anyone could have pinched it, Edmund, Lydia, even Graves. She's always poking about." Poirot tilted his head. "And you, monsieur, were in the library at midnight, door ajar, yet a light flickered in the tower. Explain." Victor lit another cigarette, stalling, fell asleep over a book, woke to the storm, checked the windows, thought I heard a creak. That's all. His eyes slid away, a liar's tick. Poirot pocketed the case, dismissing him. "Truth smokes out, monsieur, like your cigarette." The afternoon brought Constable Wilkins, soaked and flustered, with news from the village. Crawley, that London name, known to the police. Extortion, gambling debts. Word is he sent a man to Devon last week sniffing round the Abbey. Poirot's moustache twitched. A name, Inspector? Wilkins shrugged. Just the snake. Matches your seal, eh? Poirot nodded, the serpent's trail warming. He requested the staff's quarters be searched, citing the oil on the rope. Wilkins, reluctant but cowed, agreed. In Jenkins' room, tucked under a mattress, they found a ledger. Not Reginald's, but a record of payments. To J.C., £50 chalice debt. J.C., Jenkins or another? The chauffeur, summoned, paled. Not mine, sir. I drive. Not scheme. But his hands shook. Oil stains faint on his cuffs. Dinner was a grim ritual, the great hall's candles casting long shadows like fingers pointing blame. Poirot, seated beside Lydia, probed gently. Your Ouija, mademoiselle, it spoke of death. Did it name a killer? She flinched, her shawl slipping. It spelled serpent, but I thought it nonsense. I was alone, I swear. Her voice cracked, her eyes avoiding the chalice's mention. Across the table, Edmund muttered to Victor, You'd sell your own blood for £1. Victor's laugh was sharp. And you'd drown yours in brandy to forget your debts. Beatrice, silent till now, slammed her glass down. Enough! Reginald's gone and you bicker like vultures. Millicent's voice cut through, low and fervent. The chalice's curse feeds on sin. Repent, or it takes us all. Poirot excused himself, drawn to the chapel's dim glow. Inside, Millicent knelt again, her prayers a fevered chant. He waited, then spoke. The ledger in Jenkins' room. Chalice debt. You know of it? Her head snapped up, eyes wild. Reginald paid to keep that relic, not to sell it. Someone else took his gold. Someone here. She rose, clutching her rosary like a shield. Ask Victor about his London trips. He's no orchard keeper. Poirot nodded, filing her accusation. The chapel's air was cold. The stained glass saints staring down, their colours muted by night. Outside, the storm eased, leaving a dripping silence. Poirot and Hastings revisited the study, its desk now bare of clues, the bell rope still. But a faint scratch on the lock caught Poirot's eye. New, subtle, not from Graves's key. A pick, perhaps, he murmured, examining it with a pocket lens. Someone entered after the shot before dawn. Hastings frowned. But the key was inside. Poirot's smile was cryptic. Locks, mon ami, are like hearts, deceptive when forced. They searched the room again, finding a hidden drawer in the desk, its lock sprung. Inside, a single page, torn from the journal, scrawled in Reginald's hand. The snake demands all, chalice or ruin. The serpent's name again, its fangs bared. Midnight loomed, the abbey creaking like a ship in a squall. Poirot gathered the family in the morning room, the fire's glow casting their faces in sharp relief. The serpent is no myth, he said, holding up the journal page. Crawley the snake sought the chalice or its secrets. Someone here dealt with him, oiled the rope, stole the journal to hide the truth. Edmund stood, face flushed. You accuse us all, Poirot. The detective's eyes were steel. No, I accuse one. The cigarette case, the ledger, the scratched lock, signs of a hand too eager. Lydia gasped. Victor's cigarette fell. Millicent's beads stilled. Beatrice's voice was a whisper. Who, Mr. Poirot? A creak sounded. Not the bell, but the floorboards outside. Poirot spun, Hastings at his heels, as a shadow fled down the corridor. They pursued, boots echoing to the foyer, where the front door stood open, mud tracked across the rug. Outside, the moors swallowed the figure, but a glint in the grass caught Poirot's eye. A key, not the study's, but smaller, etched with a serpent. The snake's mark, he said, pocketing it. They run, but not far. Back inside, the family stood frozen, eyes wide with fear or guilt. Poirot faced them, his voice a quiet storm. The chalice is no curse. It's a key to betrayal. The serpent's agent is among you, and their trail leads to London. Tomorrow we follow. The clock struck 12, its chime a mockery of the silent bell. The abbey held its breath, the serpent's hiss louder than the dying storm. Chapter 4. The London connection, morning draped Blackthorn Abbey in a sullen mist, the moors stretching grey and endless beyond its spiked gates. Hercule Poirot stood in the foyer, his overcoat buttoned against the damp, his moustache a bristle of purpose. The serpent-etched key found in the grass, a small, cold clue, burned in his pocket, pointing not to the Abbey's locked doors, but to London, where the snake, Crawley, wove his web of debts and threats. Captain Hastings, adjusting his scarf, grumbled at the prospect of city smog after Devon's chill. "London, Poirot? This Crawley chap, think he's the killer." Poirot's eyes gleamed, sharp as the key's edge. "Non, mon ami. The killer is here among us, but Crawley pulls strings, and we must cut them." The family gathered in the morning room, their faces pale as the porcelain teacups, trembling in their hands. Lady Beatrice, her black veil a widow's armour, sat rigid, her gaze fixed on Poirot. Edmund, unshaven, swirled brandy in a glass despite the early hour. Lydia, in a charcoal dress, twisted a handkerchief, her eyes darting to the windows as if expecting a spectre. Victor, leaning against the mantel, lit a cigarette, his casual slouch a thin mask for nerves. Millicent, rosary ever present, muttered prayers that sounded like accusations. The air was heavy, the serpent's shadow slithering between them. Poirot held up the key, its serpent glinting in the firelight. "This," he said, voice clear as a bell, "was dropped last night, fleeing the tower. It is not the study's key, nor the crypt's. It unlocks something else. A secret Crawley knows. Who among you has been to London lately?" Silence fell, thick as the fog outside. Edmund coughed, breaking it. "I was there last month. Legal business, nothing more. Father's affairs, not mine." His voice was too quick, his eyes avoiding Victor's smirk. Lydia spoke, barely audible. "I went in July for a dressmaker. I didn't see Crawley or anyone." Victor exhaled smoke, his laugh low. "I was there last week poking around Soho. Crawley's den's no secret. Father knew it well. Owed him a fortune, didn't he?" Beatrice's hand tightened on her cup. "Reginald visited London often, yes, but he never spoke of Crawley to me, only of debts to settle." Millicent's beads clicked sharply. Debts to the devil. That chalice was his downfall, bartered with sinners. Poirot nodded, pocketing the key. "Merci. Today I go to London. No one leaves the Abbey. Inspector Wilkins will see to it." Wilkins, stationed by the door, nodded gruffly, his moustache twitching with the weight of authority he barely wielded. Poirot and Hastings departed in the Rolls-Royce, Jenkins at the wheel, his hands steady but his eyes wary. The drive to Exeter station was silent, the moors blurring past like a watercolour of despair. At the station, Poirot wired ahead to a contact in London, a retired inspector, Grayson, who knew Soho's underbelly. "Fine Crawley," the telegram read. "Urgent. Discreet." The train to Paddington rattled through the countryside, Hastings dozing fitfully while Poirot's mind spun, weaving the key, the chalice, and the serpent's seal into a pattern not yet clear. London greeted them with a drizzle and the clamour of cabs, its streets a maze of soot and secrets. Grayson met them at a smoky pub off Tottenham Court Road, his face craggy as the moors but sharp with old instincts. "Crawley's a vulture," he said, nursing a pint. "Runs a gambling den in Soho, back room of a place called the Viper's Nest. Extorts toffs like Harrington with debts they can't pay. Word is, he wanted that chalice of yours. Thought it'd fetch a fortune on the black market." Poirot's fingers steepled. "And his man in Devon? The snake?" Grayson shrugged. "A thug, maybe. Crawley don't get his hands dirty. You'll find him tonight. Viper's Nest, 10 o'clock. Mind yourself, he's slippery." The Viper's Nest was a dingy cellar bar, its air thick with gin and desperation. Gaslights flickered, casting shadows that danced like conspirators. Crawley sat at a corner table, a wiry man in his 50s, his face sharp as a blade, a red serpent ring glinting on his finger. Poirot approached, Hastings at his flank. revolver a comforting weight in his pocket. "Mr. Crawley," Poirot said, his voice smooth as velvet, "I am Hercule Poirot. Lord Harrington's death interests me, as does your chalice." Crawley's eyes narrowed, but his smile was a snake's charm. "Harrington? Dead? Pity. Owed me 10,000. Thought that chalice'd square it. Relic like that. Collectors pay big." He leaned forward, voice low. "Sent a man to nudge him, sure. But murder? Not my style. Too messy." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Your man. The snake. He left a key at the Abbey, marked with your crest." Crawley's smile faltered, his ringed hand twitching. "Key? News to me. My man Baxter went to Devon, yeah, delivered a letter, that's all. Harrington burned it, didn't he?" Poirot nodded, recalling Beatrice's words. "And the letter's terms?" Crawley shrugged, sipping his gin. "Pay up or lose the chalice. Simple business. If he's dead, I'm out my money." Hastings leaned in, voice gruff. "Convenient, your man being there the night he died." Crawley's laugh was dry. "Baxter's back in London. Check the pubs. I don't kill clients. Bad for trade." Poirot left the viper's nest, the serpent's words ringing hollow. Grayson tailed them, confirming Baxter's alibi. A brawl in a Whitechapel tavern at midnight, far from the Abbey's bell. But the key nagged, its purpose unclear. At their hotel, Poirot examined it under a lamp, its serpent etching intricate, almost ceremonial. "Not a door key," he murmured. "A safe, perhaps? Or a box?" Hastings yawned, sceptical. "In the Abbey? We searched everywhere." Poirot's smile was faint. "Non, mon ami. We searched where they wished us to look." The return to Devon was a midnight train, its rhythm lulling Hastings to sleep, but not Poirot, whose mind raced like the engine. Back at the Abbey, dawn was breaking, the mist thinner but the tension thicker. Wilkins greeted them with news. A maid, Molly, had found a scrap of paper in the east wing, near Lydia's parlour, scrawled with "Viper's Nest, 10 p.m." in Victor's hand. Summoned, Victor paled but shrugged. "Went there months ago, before father's death. Must have dropped it." His nonchalance was brittle, his eyes avoiding Poirot's. Lydia, passing by, overheard and froze. "You were in Soho? With Crawley?" Victor's jaw tightened. "Business, not murder. Ask Edmund. He's the one with debts to Crawley's kind." Poirot requested a search of Victor's room, Wilkins complying with a grunt. Among the cousins' sparse belongings, a few books, a chipped decanter. They found a photograph. Victor and a man with Crawley's sharp features, standing outside the viper's nest. "Old mate," Victor claimed, sweating. "Met him before father's trouble." Poirot pocketed the photo, unconvinced. In the drawing room, Beatrice awaited, her face drawn. "You found Crawley?" she asked, voice low. Poirot nodded. "He wanted the chalice, madame, but denies murder." "Your husband's debts, did they include a safe?" Her eyes widened, then fell. "In the study, behind the portrait of St. Edric. Reginald kept papers there, private ones." The study's portrait, a stern monk clutching a chalice, swung aside to reveal a wall safe, its lock matching the serpent key's size. But the safe was empty, its door scratched as if forced. "Robbed," Hastings muttered. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Or empty to hide something." He summoned Mrs. Graves, her apron a shield of starch. "The safe. Who knew of it?" She hesitated. "Only his lordship. And me for cleaning. Never opened it." Her voice was steady, but her hands twisted a cloth, oil faint on her fingers. Poirot dismissed her, mind racing. Dinner was a silent ordeal, the great hall's candles guttering like fading hopes. Edmund drank heavily. Lydia barely ate. Victor's cigarette burned untouched. Millicent's prayers were louder, Beatrice's eyes distant. Poirot spoke, voice cutting through. "The serpent's key unlocks a safe, now empty. Papers, perhaps the trust Crane mentioned, are gone." "Who took them?" Silence answered, but Edmund's glass shook. Lydia's breath caught. Victor's smirk faded. Millicent stood, voice sharp. "The chalice's sin empties all. Reginald's greed. Your greed." She stormed out, beads clattering. Night deepened. the abbey creaking under its own weight. Poirot, in his room, laid out the clues, the key, the photo, the empty safe, the viper's nest note. A knock came. Lydia, her face pale as moonlight. "I lied," she whispered. "I saw Victor leave the East Wing that night, near midnight. He carried something, papers maybe." Her hands trembled, lavender scent faint. Poirot nodded, gentle. "Merci, mademoiselle. Truth is a candle in the dark." She fled, leaving him to ponder. At midnight, a scream pierced the abbey. From the crypt, Poirot and Hastings raced down, finding Millicent crumpled by the chalice's altar, a knife in her hand, blood on her sleeve, not hers, but fresh. "I found it," she gasped, pointing to a hidden niche. Inside, a bloodied cloth wrapped a single paper, a contract signed by Reginald, promising the chalice to Crawley for debt forgiveness. "The serpent's bargain," Poirot said, pocketing it. Millicent sobbed. "I tried to stop it, prayed it away." Her collapse was real, but her knife was not. The family gathered, roused by the scream, their faces a gallery of shock. Poirot held up the contract, his voice a blade. "The serpent struck a deal, but someone struck harder. This blood, this knife, who claims it?" No one spoke. But the abbey's walls seemed to close in. The silent bells echo a pulse of dread. Chapter 5. The bloodied veil dawn crept over Blackthorn Abbey, its light weak and reluctant, as if unwilling to expose the horrors buried in its walls. Hercule Poirot stood in the crypt, the air heavy with dust and the iron tang of blood from Millicent's discovery. A knife, a cloth, and a contract tying Reginald to Crawley's serpent. The chalice gleamed on its altar, a mute witness to betrayal. Captain Hastings, rubbing sleep from his eyes, held the bloodied cloth at arm's length, his face grim. "This blood, Poirot, it's fresh." "Not Reginald's. Whose then?" Poirot's green eyes flicked to the knife, its blade etched with a faint serpent curl. "Mon ami, the blood is a signature and the knife a confession. But whose hand wrote it?" The family assembled in the morning room, the fire's crackle a mockery of warmth. Lady Beatrice, her black veil a shroud, gripped her chair's arms, her knuckles white. Edmund, dishevelled, nursed a tumbler of whiskey, his eyes bloodshot. Lydia, in a pale lavender dress, sat rigid, her fingers twisting a locket. Victor, cigarette unlit, leaned against the wall, his smirk gone. Millicent, bandaged from her crypt collapse, clutched her rosary, her face a map of fear and fervour. The contract lay on the table, its ink stark against the blood-stained cloth. Poirot's voice cut through the silence, sharp as the knife. "This contract, Reginald's promise to Crawley for the chalice, found with blood not his own. Mademoiselle Millicent, you held the knife. Explain." Millicent's beads rattled, her voice a whisper. "I found it in the crypt, near the altar. I went to pray, midnight alone. The cloth was there, the knife inside. I swear, I only touched it to save the chalice from further sin." Her eyes darted to Victor, then away. Edmund slammed his glass down. "She's lying. That knife, it's from the kitchen. I saw it there yesterday." Lydia's locket snapped shut. "And you, Edmund, were in the kitchen after dinner, arguing with Graves about the wine. Did you take it?" Victor's laugh was harsh. "Blame me next, why don't you? That contract's old news. Father never meant to honour it." Beatrice's voice was ice. "Enough. Mr. Poirot, the blood. Whose is it?" Poirot lifted the cloth, its stain dark and accusing. "The police surgeon will tell us soon. But the knife, its serpent mark matches our key. A set, perhaps, crafted for Crawley's dealings." He turned to Mrs. Graves, hovering by the door, her apron crisp as ever. "Madam, the kitchen knife. When was it missed?" Her flinty gaze met his. "Last night, sir, after supper. I locked the drawer, but this morning it was gone." Her hands were steady, but a faint tremor betrayed her. Poirot nodded, dismissing her. "Merci. The crypt, then. Let us return." The crypt's chill bit deeper now, its stone arches looming like ribs of a long-dead beast. The chalice stood untouched, but Poirot circled the altar, his fingers tracing its edges. A faint groove caught his nail. A hidden compartment, sprung open, empty save for a single pearl, cracked and yellowed. "From a necklace," he murmured, pocketing it. Hastings frowned. Beatrice's pearls or Lydia's locket? Poirot's moustache twitched. Or neither. A clue dropped. Or planted. They searched the niches, finding only cobwebs and bone dust. But a scuff mark on the floor, fresh, boot-sized, led to a side passage, narrow and unlit. It ended at a locked grate, its bars rusted but firm, opening to the moors. "An escape," Hastings said, testing the lock. Poirot nodded. "Or an entrance." Back in the great hall, Constable Wilkins arrived, puffing from the moor's damp. "Surgeon's report, sir. Blood's human, not Reginald's. Too fresh. Post-mortem, likely from last night." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And the type?" Wilkins shrugged. "Can't say yet. Lab's slow. But we found this, near the well." He held up a torn glove, leather, stained with mud and a faint red smear. "Matches the footprints to the moors." Poirot examined it, noting a monogram. E.H. Edmund Harrington. Summoned Edmund blanched, his whiskey glass nearly slipping. "My glove? Lost it weeks ago, hunting out by the yews." His voice cracked, unconvincing. Victor snorted. "Convenient, brother. Like your debts disappearing with father." Poirot requested a private word with Lydia in her parlour, its air heavy with lavender and wax. Her Ouija board lay dusty, the planchette still on yes. "Mademoiselle," he began, "you saw Victor leave the East Wing at midnight. Carrying papers, you said. Did you follow?" Her locket clicked open, revealing a miniature of her late husband. "No. I was afraid. He looked wild, not himself. I stayed here, locked my door." Her eyes were wide, but her fingers betrayed a tremor. Poirot held up the pearl. "Yours?" She shook her head too quickly. "Mother's, maybe. She wears them always." He nodded, letting her go, but her scent lingered. Lavender, sharp as the crypt's air. Lunch was a grim affair, the dining hall's tapestries glaring down like judges. Edmund avoided Poirot's gaze. Lydia picked at her food. Victor's cigarette burned untouched. Millicent's prayers were a low drone. Beatrice's pearls gleamed like accusations. Poirot spoke, voice calm but piercing. "The glove, the pearl, the blood, each a thread in the serpent's web. Someone entered the crypt last night, left blood, took papers. Who?" Silence answered, broken only by a distant creak. The Abbey's bones or something closer. Mrs. Graves cleared plates, her eyes meeting Poirot's for a moment too long. Afternoon brought a visit to the village. Poirot and Hastings trudging to the local jeweller, a wizened man named Pratt. The pearl, he confirmed, was old, likely from a Harrington heirloom, but not Beatrice's. Hers were flawless, these flawed. "Seen one like it," Pratt said, squinting. "Miss Lydia's locket years back. She sold a few to pay debts." Poirot's moustache quivered. A lie exposed or a misstep. Back at the Abbey, he confronted Lydia in the drawing room. "The pearl, mademoiselle, it is yours. Why deny it?" Her face crumpled, tears spilling. "I sold some, yes, but not that one. I swear I wasn't in the crypt." Her voice broke, but her eyes held a flicker of defiance. Dusk painted the Abbey in purples, the moors a sea of shadow. Poirot summoned Jenkins to the garage, the Rolls-Royce gleaming like a silent witness. "The glove, monsieur, found near your well. You saw nothing." Jenkins shook his head, his oil-stained hands steady. "I was in bed, sir. Storm kept me up, but I didn't roam." Poirot held up the glove, its smear faint. "Blood, perhaps yours?" Jenkins paled. "Not mine, sir. I cut my hand last week, scabbed over." He showed a healed nick, unconvincing. Poirot dismissed him, noting the oil can's lid, still loose on the workbench. Night fell, the Abbey's silence heavier than the storm's roar. Poirot gathered the family in the library, its shelves looming like silent jurors. He placed the glove, The pearl and the contract on the table, the knife beside them, its serpent glinting. The blood is fresh, the pearl is Lydia's, the glove Edmund's. The contract binds Reginald to Crawley, but the killer binds themselves to this house. Who entered the crypt? Edmund stood, face flushed. Not me, that glove was stolen. Lydia's voice was a whisper. I wasn't there, I swear it. Victor's eyes narrowed. Graves has keys to everything. Ask her. Millicent's rosary snapped, beads scattering. The chalice curses us all. Beatrice's pearls clicked as she rose. Mr. Poirot, end this. A scream shattered the moment. From the tower. Poirot and Hastings raced up the spiral stair, the family trailing, their breaths ragged. The bell hung still, but the window was open, a rope ladder dangling into the night. Below, the moors swallowed any trace of a figure. On the sill, a single drop of blood. Fresh, red. Hastings cursed. They're taunting us. Poirot's smile was grim. Non, they panic. The serpent sheds its skin, but we see its shape. He turned to the family, their faces pale in the belfry's gloom. The blood binds one of you to the knife. Tomorrow I name the hand. Midnight tolled from the village. The abbey's bell silent but heavy. Poirot retired, his mind a storm of clues. The pearls lie, the gloves smear, the ladder's escape. The serpent was close, its venom in the abbey's veins. Hastings, he said, lighting a Gauloise. The killer runs, but the bell will toll their name. Chapter 6. The ladder's shadow morning broke over Blackthorn Abbey, the mist thinning to reveal a sky like tarnished silver, heavy with the threat of new storms. Hercule Poirot stood in the bell tower, his small frame dwarfed by the massive bronze bell, its leather gag now removed but its silence still haunting. The rope ladder, dangling from the open window, swayed faintly in the dawn breeze. A taunt from the killer who'd fled into the night. Captain Hastings, rubbing his neck from a sleepless night, examined the sill's blood drop, now dried to a dark speck. They're bold, Poirot, he said, voice rough. Climbing towers, dropping clues, mocking us. Poirot's green eyes gleamed, sharp as the serpent-etched knife. Non, mon ami. They are desperate. The ladder leads outward, but the truth points within. The family gathered in the great hall, its tapestries of hunted stags casting long shadows in the candlelight. Lady Beatrice, her black veil a mask of grief, sat stiffly, her pearls gleaming like frozen tears. Edmund, unshaven and haggard, clutched a coffee cup, his eyes darting to the door. Lydia, in a muted green dress, twisted her locket, its clasp worn from nervous habit. Victor, cigarette unlit, leaned against a pillar, his face a study in forced calm. Millicent, her rosary restrung, murmured prayers, but her gaze was sharp, accusing. The knife, glove, pearl and contract lay on a table, each a silent witness to betrayal. Poirot's voice sliced through the tension. The ladder last night, an escape, oui, but from what? The crypt's blood? The stolen papers? Who climbed? Silence answered, thick as the abbey's stone walls. Edmund broke it, his voice hoarse. You keep pointing fingers, Poirot. That glove's mine, but I didn't climb. Someone's framing me. Victor, probably. Victor's laugh was brittle. Me? I was in my room, counting my lack of inheritance. Ask Lydia. She's the one sneaking about with her seances. Lydia's locket snapped shut. I told you. I saw Victor that night, not climbing towers but carrying papers. Accuse me if you dare. Millicent's beads clicked. Sinners, all of you. The chalice's curse drives this madness. Beatrice's voice was a whip. Enough bickering. Mr. Poirot, the blood. Whose is it? Poirot's moustache twitched. The surgeon works, madame, but the ladder, its rope is new, not weathered. Who brought it here? Mrs. Graves entered, her apron starched but her face drawn. Breakfast, sirs, she said, setting down a tray of toast and jam. Poirot's eyes locked on her. Madame, the attic, where ropes are stored. She stiffened, hands smoothing her apron. Up the west stair, sir. Locked. Keys with me. No one's been there. Her voice was steady, but her fingers betrayed a faint oil stain, familiar from the garage. Poirot nodded, dismissing her, but his mind marked the clue. He turned to Hastings. "The attic, mon ami. Let us climb higher than the killer." The attic was a warren of dust and cobwebs, its rafters sagging under centuries of secrets. Trunks of moth-eaten gowns and cracked portraits lined the walls, but a corner held ropes, old hemp, frayed, none matching the ladder's pristine weave. A small window, unlatched, overlooked the tower's roof. Hastings peered out, spotting a scuff on the slate, a boot perhaps fresh. "They climbed from here," he said, pointing. Poirot examined the scuff, noting a trace of mud, red like the Moor's clay. Not Victor's boots, they're black-soled. Edmund's, perhaps, or another's. They descended, the attic's chill clinging like a warning. In the library, Poirot summoned Wilkins, who arrived puffing, his notebook damp from the morning's drizzle. "Surgeon's report, sir," he said. "Blood's type matches none in the family, yet. Could be a servant's. Testing takes time." Poirot held up the glove. "And this?" "Traces of red clay like the attic." Wilkins nodded. "Found near the well, aye. Edmund's, but he swears it was stolen." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Then we search his room." Edmund's quarters, sparse for an heir, held little. A suitcase, a few suits, a hidden flask. But under the bed, a scrap of paper, torn, scrawled with "Meet at Viper's Nest, midnight." Not Victor's hand, but Edmund's, shaky. "Debtor's rendezvous," Poirot murmured, "or a killer's lure." Lunch was tense, the dining hall's chandeliers flickering like nervous eyes. Edmund barely ate, his hands trembling. Lydia whispered to Beatrice, her locket glinting. Victor's cigarette burned low, his gaze fixed on Poirot. Millicent's prayers were louder, a chant against the room's unease. Poirot spoke, voice calm but cutting. "The ladder's rope is new, its climber's boot red with more clay. The glove, the paper. Edmund, you met Crawley's men. Why?" Edmund stood, face flushed. "I owed money, yes, but not to Crawley. That note's old. Someone planted it." His voice cracked, unconvincing. Lydia's eyes widened. "You lied about London, then?" Victor snorted. "He lies about everything. Debts, alibis, all of it." Poirot requested a word with Beatrice in the drawing room, its faded brocades heavy with dust. She sat, pearls clicking softly. "Edmund's debts," she said, voice low, "were worse than he admits. Reginald refused to pay, said he'd sell the chalice first. Edmund begged him the night he died." Her eyes were dry, but her hands shook. Poirot held up the pearl from the crypt. "Yours, madame?" She shook her head. "Lydia's from her locket. She sold some, but kept those, sentimental, for her husband." Poirot nodded, filing the confirmation. "And the safe's papers, what did they hold?" Beatrice hesitated. "Reginald's trust, a fund for the chalice, to keep it from Crawley. He feared betrayal, even from us." Afternoon brought a visit to the village postmaster, a wiry man named Stokes. Poirot showed the Viper's Nest note. "Posted here?" Stokes squinted. "Aye, last week. Handwriting's like Mr. Edmund's. Sent to London, no return address." Another thread tied to Edmund, but Poirot's mind snagged on the ladder's rope. New, not local. He returned to the Abbey, summoning Jenkins to the garage. "The rope, monsieur, purchased recently." Jenkins shook his head, oil stains faint on his sleeves. "Not by me, sir. All our ropes are old stock." But a crate in the corner, half covered, held climbing gear, new, branded from a London shop. "Not mine," Jenkins insisted, sweating. Poirot's smile was thin. "Yet it is here." Dusk fell, the Abbey stones glowing faintly under a sickle moon. Poirot gathered the family in the morning room, the fire casting their faces in sharp angles. He placed the note, the glove, and the pearl on the table, the knife beside them. The ladder was no escape, it was access. Someone climbed to silence the bell, to stage the crime. "Edmund, your glove, your note, explain." Edmund's face crumpled. I met a man in London, yes, about father's debts. But I didn't kill him. Lydia's voice was sharp. Then why hide it? Victor's cigarette flared. Because he's guilty. Or someone wants him to look it. Millicent's beads snapped again. The chalice's curse, Edmund's greed brought this. Beatrice stood, voice cold. Mr. Poirot, name the killer. A creak echoed. Not the bell, but the attic stair. Poirot bolted, Hastings following, the family trailing like ghosts. The attic window was open, the ladder gone, but a fresh blood drop gleamed on the floor. Red, wet, Hastings cursed. They're still here. Poirot's eyes scanned the shadows, finding a torn fabric scrap, lavender silk, like Lydia's dress. The killer weaves a new thread, he said, pocketing it. He turned to the family, their breaths visible in the chill. The blood, the silk, someone bleeds to hide their sin. Tomorrow the bell tolls truth. Midnight struck, the village clock a faint echo. Poirot retired, his mind a storm of clues. The ladder's rope, the red clay, the lavender scrap, Edmund's note. The serpent's coils tightened, but its head was near. Hastings, he said, lighting a Gauloise. The killer climbs, but they will fall. Chapter 7. The Silk's Whisper. The morning sun pierced Blackthorn Abbey's mist, casting jagged shadows through its arched windows. But no light could banish the chill of betrayal. Hercule Poirot stood in the attic. The lavender silk scrap, torn from a dress like Lydia's, clutched in his gloved hand, its faint scent a thread to the killer. The blood drop on the floor, fresh as the night's escape, mocked his progress. Captain Hastings, his coat dusted with attic grime, frowned at the open window where the ladder had vanished. "They're one step ahead, Poirot," he said, voice tight. "Blood, silk, playing us like pawns." Poirot's eyes, sharp as cut glass, scanned the rafters. "Non, mon ami. They run because the board tilts. This silk, it speaks, and we listen." In the great hall, the family gathered, their faces etched with dread under the flickering chandeliers. Lady Beatrice, her black veil a shroud, sat with hands folded, her pearls dull in the dim light. Edmund, eyes sunken, gripped a tumbler, its whiskey untouched. Lydia, in a navy dress, pointedly not lavender, twisted her locket, her gaze flickering to the door. Victor, cigarette dangling, leaned against a tapestry, his smirk a thin veneer. Millicent, rosary restrung, muttered prayers, her eyes darting like a cornered hare's. Poirot held up the silk scrap, its colour a silent accusation. "This, found in the attic beside fresh blood. Mademoiselle Lydia, your dress? Lavender like this. Explain." Lydia's locket snapped shut, her voice a whisper. "I own no lavender dress now. Sold it months ago. Someone's framing me, like Edmund's glove." Her eyes met Victor's, sharp with blame. Victor exhaled smoke, his laugh brittle. "Clever, pinning it on her. But I'd wager Graves. She's got keys, hands everywhere, and that oil on her apron." Edmund's tumbler hit the table. "Enough, Victor! You're the one skulking in London, cosy with Crawley's lot." Millicent's beads rattled. "Sinners casting stones. The chalice's curse stains us all." Beatrice's voice cut through, cold as the moor's wind. "Mr. Poirot, the blood. Whose is it? The silk?" Poirot's moustache twitched. "The blood awaits the surgeon's word. The silk. Perhaps a seamstress knows its owner." He turned to Mrs. Graves, entering with a tea tray, her face impassive. "Madame, the laundry, lavender silk, recently cleaned." Her eyes flicked to Lydia, then away. "None, sir. Miss Lydia's dresses are blue, green, grey, none lavender." Her voice was steady, but her hands smoothed her apron, oil faint on her fingers. Poirot dismissed her, beckoning Hastings to the east wing, Lydia's quarters. The parlour was a shrine to her past. Faded photographs of her naval officer husband, a dusty Ouija board, and a wardrobe of muted gowns. No lavender. But under a floorboard, loosened by Hastings' boot, lay a needle and thread, lavender silk caught in the stitching. "She lied," Hastings muttered. Poirot shook his head. or someone sows suspicion. The thread is fresh, the lie older. They searched further, finding a hidden diary, Lydia's, its pages torn after a date last month. V. Met him again. Soho. I followed. Saw the serpent. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Victor in the viper's nest. But Lydia, she watched, not joined. They ventured to the village, to the seamstress, Mrs. Tuttle, a plump woman with needle-scarred fingers. She examined the silk scrap, nodding. Miss Lydia's, from a dress she wore last spring. Said it tore, gave it to charity. Poirot showed the needle and thread. This too? Tuttle frowned. Not mine. Too fine. London work. Another thread to Crawley's web. Back at the Abbey, Poirot confronted Victor in the library, its shelves heavy with untouched books. Monsieur, Lydia followed you to Soho. The Viper's Nest. What deal did you strike? Victor's cigarette paused, his eyes narrowing. She spied. Nosy little widow. I met a buyer, not Crawley. Offered me a cut to broker the chalice. Father refused, so I dropped it. His voice was smooth, but his fingers twitched, betraying nerves. Lunch was a silent ordeal, the dining hall's tapestries glaring like silent judges. Edmund barely ate. Lydia's locket clicked incessantly. Victor's cigarette burned low. Millicent's prayers droned. Beatrice's pearls gleamed with cold light. Poirot spoke, his voice a scalpel. The silk ties to Lydia, the blood to no one yet. But the ladder's climber left clay, silk, blood, a trail of panic. Who sews this web? Edmund stood, face flushed. Not me! That glove was planted, like her silk. Lydia's voice was sharp. And your Soho debts, Edmund. You met Crawley's men too. Victor snorted. We're all snakes here, aren't we? Millicent's beads snapped again. Repent, or the chalice claims more. Beatrice's hand slammed the table. Find the killer, Poirot, before we tear ourselves apart. Afternoon brought Constable Wilkins, his face red from the moor's chill. Surgeon's update, sir. Blood's not family. Likely a servant's, but no match yet. Found this, though, in the U-copse. He held a brass button, serpent etched, like the key. Poirot's eyes narrowed. From a coat, whose? Wilkins shrugged. Not Edmund's, his a plain. Maybe Jenkins. Poirot summoned the chauffeur to the garage, the Rolls-Royce gleaming like a silent witness. This button, monsieur, yours? Jenkins shook his head, his oil-stained hands steady. My coat's got horn buttons, sir. Check it. His jacket, hung on a peg, confirmed it. No serpents. But a toolbox held a small knife, its blade clean but matching the crypts in size. For repairs, Jenkins said, sweating. Poirot pocketed the button, dismissing him. Dusk settled, the Abbey's stones glowing faintly under a waning moon. Poirot gathered the family in the drawing-room, its brocades heavy with dust. He laid out the silk, the button, the needle, the knife. The ladder's climber left silk and blood, the button a serpent's mark. Lydia, your diary speaks of Victor's Soho betrayal. Victor, you deny Crawley but admit a buyer. Edmund, your debts weave you in. Someone here bleeds to hide their sin. Lydia gasped. Victor's cigarette fell. Edmund's face paled. Millicent's prayers faltered. Beatrice's pearls clicked. A creak sounded, not the bell but the front door, left ajar. Hastings bolted, finding fresh mud tracks. Red clay, leading to the crypt. Poirot led the charge, the family trailing, their breaths ragged in the cold passage. The crypt's altar was disturbed. The chalice shifted. A fresh blood drop on its rim, red, wet. Beside it, a torn letter, half burned. Pay or the chalice goes public. Crawley. Poirot's voice was a blade. The serpent threatens, but the killer acts. This blood, this letter, who placed them? Millicent sank to her knees, sobbing. I prayed here last night, saw no one. Victor's voice was sharp. Lying again, aunt? You're always creeping about. Edmund pointed at Lydia. Her silk, her lies. She's the snake. Lydia's locket fell, spilling a pearl, cracked like the crypts. Poirot knelt, retrieving the pearl, his eyes locking on Lydia's. Mademoiselle, you followed Victor, but did you climb? The silk, the pearl, yours. She shook her head, tears falling. I was here, yes, praying with Millicent. After midnight. I dropped the pearl, but not the blood. Millicent nodded, reluctant. She was with me till 1. Poirot's moustache twitched. An alibi or a pact. He turned to the family, their faces a gallery of fear. The serpent's web tightens, but the killer's hand slips. Tomorrow the bell names its master. Midnight tolled from the village, the abbey's silence a scream. Poirot retired, his mind a storm of clues. The silk's lie, the button's mark, the fresh blood, the burned letter. The serpent's fangs were bared, but its throat was near. Hastings, he said, lighting a Gauloise. The killer weaves, but their thread phrase. Chapter 8. The altar's truth morning draped Blackthorn Abbey in a shroud of fog, its tendrils curling like fingers around the ancient stones, as if guarding their secrets. Hercule Poirot stood in the crypt, the chalice's faint gleam a taunt in the dim light, its rim stained with fresh blood that whispered of a killer's recent touch. The torn letter, Crawley's threat, lay heavy in his pocket, its burned edges a map of desperation. Captain Hastings, his face drawn from sleepless nights, paced the stone floor, his boots echoing in the vaulted chill. This blood, Poirot, he said, voice low. It's too fresh. Someone still bleeding, still here. Poirot's green eyes flicked to the altar, his moustache a bristle of focus. Oui, mon ami. The blood is a confession, the letter a lure. The killer hides, but the crypt betrays. The family gathered in the morning room, the fire's glow casting their faces in stark relief against the green velvet drapes. Lady Beatrice, her black veil a mask of resolve, sat with hands clasped, her pearls dull in the grey light. Edmund, his tie askew, clutched a coffee cup, his knuckles white. Lydia, in a grey shawl, twisted her locket, its empty clasp a silent accusation. Victor, cigarette unlit, leaned against the mantel, his eyes darting like a trapped fox. Millicent, her rosary tight in her grip, murmured prayers, but her voice trembled with something darker. Poirot placed the burned letter on the table, its serpent-sealed threat stark. This, he said, voice sharp as a blade, demanded the chalice, or ruin. Found with blood in the crypt, where Mademoiselle Lydia and Millicent prayed. Who bled there? Lydia's locket fell to the table, her face pale. I told you I was with Millicent, praying, not bleeding. That pearl was old, dropped by accident. Millicent's beads clicked, her voice fervent. She speaks truth. We knelt together, seeking grace. The blood wasn't ours. Edmund slammed his cup down. Then whose? Victor's, skulking around, planting clues like that glove. Victor's laugh was sharp, his cigarette snapping in his fingers. Me? You're the one with debts to Crawley, Edmund. Maybe you bled to cover them. Beatrice's voice cut through, icy. Mr. Poirot, the blood, whose is it? End this. Poirot's moustache twitched. The surgeon tests it now, madame. But the letter, Crawley's demand, was hidden, then revealed. Someone placed it to shift blame. He turned to Mrs. Graves, entering with a tea tray, her apron crisp, but her eyes wary. Madame, the crypt. Who cleans it? Her hands stilled, oil faint on her fingers. Molly, sir, but not last night. I locked it after dinner. Poirot nodded, dismissing her, but her quick glance at Victor lingered in his mind. He beckoned Hastings to the study, its oak door still sealed since the murder. The bell rope hung still, but a faint scratch on the floor, new, near the desk, caught his eye. A drag mark, he murmured, kneeling. Something heavy, moved recently. They pried open a panel beneath the desk, revealing a hidden compartment, empty, but lined with velvet, chalice-sized. A single hair clung to it, auburn, like Lydia's. Her again, Hastings said, frowning. Poirot shook his head. Planted, perhaps. The killer sows doubt like seed. They searched further, finding a small keyhole in the desk's underside, matching the serpent-etched key. It turned, revealing a tiny drawer, empty but dusted with ash like the burned letter. "Papers," Poirot said, "taken to hide the trust." Hastings nodded. "But who moved the chalice last night?" Poirot summoned Molly, the maid, to the drawing room, her young face pale under her cap. "The crypt, mademoiselle. Did you see anyone there after dinner?" She twisted her apron, voice trembling. "No, sir, but I heard footsteps, late near the east wing. Thought it was Miss Lydia, with her candles." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And the chalice, touched it?" She shook her head, tears welling. "Never, sir. It's cursed. Everyone says so." Her fear was real, but her glance at the door betrayed knowledge. Poirot dismissed her, turning to Hastings. "The east wing again. Let us walk the killer's path." The east wing's corridor was dim, its tapestries faded saints glaring down. Lydia's parlour door was ajar, a faint lavender scent lingering. Inside, a candle stub, freshly burned, sat beside her Ouija board, its planchette on "No." Poirot lifted it, finding a smudge of blood beneath. Red, wet. "She lied," Hastings whispered. Poirot's smile was grim. "Or another did. The blood follows her, but the hand is not yet hers." They searched her room, finding a locked trunk under the bed. The serpent key fit, opening it to reveal a bundle of letters. Reginald's, addressed to Crawley, promising payment but pleading delay. One, dated a week before the murder, read, "The trust protects the chalice. None shall have it." Lydia's voice came from the doorway, sharp. "Those aren't mine. Someone put them there." Poirot faced her, holding a letter. "Mademoiselle, you followed Victor to Soho, knew of Crawley. These letters, did you steal them?" Her face crumpled, tears falling. "I found them in father's desk before he died. I hid them to protect him, not to kill." Her voice broke, but her eyes held defiance. Poirot nodded, pocketing a letter. "Truth, mademoiselle, is a locked trunk. We open it slowly." He dismissed her, turning to Hastings. "The blood, the silk, the letters, all point to Lydia, yet too neatly. The killer orchestrates." Lunch was a grim ritual, the dining hall's chandeliers casting nervous flickers. Edmund drank heavily. Lydia barely touched her soup. Victor's cigarette burned low. Millicent's prayers were a low hum. Beatrice's pearls clicked as she shifted. Poirot spoke, voice calm but piercing. "The blood in the crypt, the silk in the attic, the letters in Lydia's trunk. Someone weaves a noose, but for whom? The chalice's trust is the key, hidden by theft." Edmund stood, face flushed. "Lydia's guilty. Her silk, her pearls, her lies," Victor snorted. "And your glove, Edmund? Your debts? We're all pawns here." Millicent's beads snapped, scattering across the floor. "The chalice curses us. Stop it, Poirot." Beatrice's voice was a whisper. "Find the killer, before it claims another." Afternoon brought Wilkins, his face flushed from the moor's wind. "Surgeon's report, sir. Bloods are servants. Jenkins. Cut his hand this morning, sharpening tools." Poirot summoned Jenkins to the garage, the Rolls-Royce gleaming like a silent judge. "Monsieur, your blood in the crypt. Explain." Jenkins paled, showing a fresh bandage. "Cut myself at dawn, sir, in the shed. Never went to the crypt." His voice was steady, but his eyes flicked to a crate. Climbing gear, rope missing. Poirot's moustache twitched. "Your blood, your rope. Convenient." Jenkins shook his head, sweating. "Not mine, sir. Someone's using me." Dusk fell, the abbey stones dark under a sickle moon. Poirot gathered the family in the library, its shelves looming like silent witnesses. He laid out the silk, the letter, the bloodied planchette. The crypt's blood is Jenkins, but the silk, the letters, point to Lydia. The trust, Reginald's secret, drives this. Who took it? Lydia sobbed. Victor's cigarette fell. Edmund's face paled. Millicent's prayers faltered. Beatrice's pearls gleamed. A creak sounded. Not the bell, but the study door, left ajar. Hastings bolted, finding a fresh scratch on the lock. Picked, recent. Inside, the bell rope swayed. a faint blood smear on its hemp. Poirot's voice was a blade. The killer returned, to hide or seek. The trust is near, the serpent's hand closer. He turned to the family, their faces a gallery of dread. Jenkins bleeds, Lydia lies, Edmund owes, Victor schemes, Millicent prays, Beatrice knows. Tomorrow, the bell tolls the killer's name. A scream echoed from the chapel. Poirot ran, finding Millicent collapsed. A chalice-shaped pendant in her hand, blood on her wrist, self-inflicted, shallow. "I tried to end it," she whispered. "The curse must stop." Poirot's eyes burned. "Non, mademoiselle. The curse is human." Midnight struck, the village clock a faint pulse. Poirot retired, his mind a storm of clues. Jenkins' blood, Lydia's letters, the scratched lock, Millicent's wound. The serpent's fangs were sharp, but its heart was exposed. "Hastings," he said, lighting a Gauloise. "The killer bleeds, and the bell will sing." Chapter 9. The Bell's Confession. Morning broke over Blackthorn Abbey, its light sharp and cold, slicing through the fog like a blade through silk. Hercule Poirot stood in the chapel, the chalice-shaped pendant, bloodied from Millicent's wrist, gleaming in his gloved hand, a relic of desperation or deceit. The crypt's fresh blood, Lydia's hidden letters, and the study's scratched lock pointed to a killer circling closer, their steps faltering. Captain Hastings, his face etched with fatigue, leaned against a pew, his eyes on the stained glass saints glaring down. "Millicent's wound, Poirot," he said, voice low. "Self-inflicted, she claims. But the blood in the crypt. Jenkins. Too many bleeders." Poirot's green eyes flicked to the pendant, his moustache a quiver of certainty. "Oui, mon ami. The blood is a chorus, but the bell sings the solo. Today, it names the killer." The family gathered in the great hall, its tapestries of hunted beasts heavy with judgment. Lady Beatrice, her black veil a shield, sat with hands clasped, her pearls catching the fire's flicker. Edmund, unshaven, clutched a tumbler, its whiskey untouched. Lydia, in a muted blue dress, twisted her empty locket, her eyes haunted. Victor, cigarette unlit, slouched against a pillar, his smirk gone. Millicent, her wrist bandaged, held her rosary, her prayers silent, but her gaze sharp. Poirot placed the pendant, the bloodied cloth, and the burned letter on the table, each a note in the symphony of suspicion. "This pendant," he said, voice clear as a toll, "found with Millicent's blood. The crypt's blood is Jenkins. The letter's Lydia's. The glove Edmund's. The killer weaves, but their thread snaps. Who confesses?" Millicent's beads stilled, her voice a whisper. "I cut myself to end the curse, nothing more. I wasn't in the crypt." Edmund's tumbler hit the table. "She's lying. Her prayers are a front. Always sneaking, always judging." Lydia's locket clicked shut. "And you, Edmund? Your glove, your debts, did you bleed to hide them?" Victor's laugh was dry. "All of you," pointing fingers. "I'm the easy mark, aren't I? No blood on me." Beatrice's voice was ice. "Mr. Poirot, the pendant. Whose is it? The killer's?" Poirot's moustache twitched. "The pendant is Millicent's, but the blood in the crypt is not. The killer uses blood to blind us." He turned to Mrs. Graves, entering with a tea tray, her apron crisp but her eyes guarded. "Madame, the chapel cleaned recently?" She nodded, hands steady. "Yesterday, sir, by Molly. No blood till last night." Her voice was firm, but a faint oil stain marked her sleeve. Poirot dismissed her, his mind snagging on her presence. Always near, always clean. He beckoned Hastings to the study, its oak door now scarred with fresh scratches. The bell rope hung still, but a faint smear, blood, not Jenkins, marked its hemp. "Another hand," Poirot murmured, examining it. "The killer returned, but why?" Hastings frowned. "To hide the trust, or plant more lies?" They searched the room, finding a hidden panel behind a bookshelf, its hinges oiled, recently, like the rope. Inside, a small box locked bore a serpent-etched keyhole. The key from the Moors fit, opening it to reveal a single document, a codicil to Reginald's will, naming Beatrice sole guardian of the Chalice's trust, bypassing Edmund. "Motive!" Hastings said, eyes wide. Poirot nodded. "But not proof. The killer wants this hidden, or found." They pocketed the codicil, returning to the hall. Constable Wilkins arrived, his face flushed from the Moor's chill. "Surgeon's final report, sir. Crypt bloods Jenkins confirmed. Chapel blood, Millicent's self-inflicted. But a third sample, on the rope, unknown, not family or staff." Poirot's eyes gleamed. A stranger, or one who hides their wound? He summoned Jenkins to the garage, the Rolls-Royce gleaming like a silent judge. "Monsieur, your blood in the crypt. How?" Jenkins showed his bandaged hand, voice steady. "Cut it at dawn, like I said. Never went near the crypt." Poirot held up the rope's smear. "This blood, not yours, whose?" Jenkins paled, oil stains faint on his cuffs. "Not mine, sir. I swear." Lunch was a tense ritual, the dining hall's chandeliers casting nervous shadows. Edmund barely ate. Lydia's locket lay open. Victor's cigarette burned low. Millicent's prayers were a hum. Beatrice's pearls clicked softly. Poirot spoke, voice a scalpel. "The codicil names Beatrice guardian of the Chalice's trust. Someone hid it, bled to cover it. The rope's blood is unknown. Whose hand trembles?" Edmund stood, face red. "Not mine." That glove was planted. Lydia's voice was sharp. "And your debts, Edmund? You'd kill for that trust." Victor snorted. "Or Beatrice. She'd do anything to keep the chalice." Millicent's beads rattled. "The curse claims all. Stop it, Poirot." Beatrice's hand stilled. "Name the killer, Mr. Poirot." Afternoon brought a visit to the village surgeon, Dr. Ellis, his office thick with antiseptic and pipe smoke. He confirmed the rope's blood. Type rare, not matching any known sample. "Could be an outsider," he said, shrugging. "Or someone clever, hiding a cut." Poirot nodded, his mind on the Abbey's staff. Back at the Abbey, he confronted Molly in the kitchen, her hands red from scrubbing pots. "The chapel, mademoiselle. Blood on the rope, not Millicent's. Seen anyone wounded?" She shook her head, eyes wide. "No, sir. But Mr. Victor, he's been limping, hiding it." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Merci." The limp betrays. Dusk fell, the Abbey's stones dark under a waning moon. Poirot summoned Victor to the library, its shelves heavy with silent judgment. "Monsieur, a limp, your wound." Victor's smirk faltered, his cigarette unlit. "Twisted my ankle, nothing more. No blood." He rolled up his sleeve. No cuts, but a faint bruise circled his wrist, like Reginald's. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A struggle, perhaps?" "With your uncle?" Victor laughed, shaky. "You're grasping, Poirot. I was in London, not bleeding here." His eyes flicked to the door, a liar's tick. Night deepened, the Abbey creaking like a ship in a squall. Poirot gathered the family in the morning room, the fire casting their faces in sharp relief. He laid out the codicil, the pendant, the bloodied rope. The trust names Beatrice, the blood names no one, yet. Victor's bruise, Lydia's letters, Edmund's glove, Millicent's wound, Jenkins' blood, all threads in the serpent's web. The killer bled on the rope, climbed the ladder, hid the trust. Lydia gasped. Victor's cigarette fell. Edmund's face paled. Millicent's prayers stopped. Beatrice's pearls gleamed. A creak echoed. Not the bell, but the crypt's grate, left ajar. Hastings bolted, finding a fresh blood drop, red, wet, on the stone. Poirot's voice was thunder. The killer moves, bleeding still. The Chalice's trust is their prize, the bell their mask. Tonight I set a trap. He turned to the family, their faces a gallery of dread. "Return to your rooms. The serpent strikes at midnight." A scream pierced the silence. From the tower, Poirot ran. Hastings at his heels, finding the bell swaying, its rope cut, a fresh blood smear on the floor. No figure, but a shadow fled across the moors, limping. "Victor," Hastings whispered. Poirot's smile was grim, or his ghost. "The bell tolls tomorrow. Midnight struck, the village clock a faint echo. Poirot retired, his mind a storm of clues. The unknown blood, Victor's bruise, the cut rope, the hidden codicil. The serpent's heart beat loud, its end near. Hastings, he said, lighting a Gauloise. The killer bleeds, and the bell will unmask them. Chapter 10. The bell's final toll dawn broke over Blackthorn Abbey, its light sharp as a guillotine, cutting through the fog to expose the raw truth beneath. Hercule Poirot stood in the great hall, the massive bronze bell, silenced no more, looming in his mind as the key to unmasking a killer. The cut rope, the unknown blood, Victor's bruise, Lydia's letters, Edmund's glove, Millicent's wound, and the hidden codicil wove a tapestry of betrayal, its final thread ready to snap. Captain Hastings, his face haggard from sleepless nights, stood by the hearth, his notebook bulging with clues. "The trap, Poirot," he said, voice low. "You said it last night. Did it catch the snake?" Poirot's green eyes gleamed, his moustache a bristle of triumph. "Oui, mon ami." The serpent struck, but the bell tolls its name. The family gathered, their faces pale under the chandelier's flickering glow. Lady Beatrice, her black veil lifted, sat with eyes like steel, her pearls a cold chain. Edmund, unshaven, gripped a chair, his knuckles white. Lydia, in a grey dress, clutched her empty locket, her gaze darting to the door. Victor, cigarette unlit, leaned against a tapestry, his bruise a faint shadow on his wrist. Millicent, rosary tight, murmured no prayers, her face a mask of dread. Mrs. Graves hovered by the door, her apron crisp, oil stains gone. Poirot laid out the clues. Glove, silk, pendant, letter, codicil, bloodied rope on the table, each a note in the symphony of murder. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said, voice clear as a bell. The silent bell tolled for Lord Harrington, but its silence was a lie. "The killer is here, and the truth rings." He began, pacing slowly. Reginald died in a locked study, a gunshot to the temple, the Webley beside him. "Suicide," the coroner said, but the bruise on his wrist, a handprint, screamed struggle. The bell's rope creaked at midnight, gagged to silence its peal, a ruse to stage the crime. The chalice, tied to Crawley's serpent, was the motive. Its trust, hidden in a codicil, the prize. Blood in the crypt, silk in the attic, a glove by the well, a letter burned, a rope cut, all pointed to you, yet none alone named you. The family shifted, eyes wide, breaths held. Beatrice's pearls clicked. "Name them, Mr. Poirot." Poirot's gaze swept the room. "Edmund, your glove, your debts." Crawley's shadow loomed over you. "You met his men in Soho, begged for time. The note in your hand, the clay on your boots, guilty steps. But your alibi, the bathwater running, held, if barely." Edmund's face flushed, but he stayed silent. "Lydia, your silk, your pearl, your letters, following Victor to the viper's nest, hiding Reginald's pleas to Crawley, your locket's clasp, empty, betrayed a loss, but your midnight prayer with Millicent cleared you." Lydia's shoulders sagged, tears falling. "Victor, your bruise matched Reginald's, your cigarette case by the well, your Soho deals, yet your limp was no wound, and your blood absent." Victor's smirk flickered. "Uncertain." "Millicent," Poirot continued, "your pendant, your blood in the chapel, self-inflicted, you claimed to end the curse. Your prayers hid fervour, but not murder." Millicent's rosary stilled, her eyes downcast. "Jenkins, your blood in the crypt, your oil on the rope, but a cut at dawn, not midnight, and your tools were clean." Jenkins in the doorway exhaled. Poirot turned to Beatrice. "Madame, the codicil named you guardian of the chalice's trust, a fortune Crawley coveted. Your pearls, your composure, yet you knew of the safe, the letters. Why silent?" Beatrice's voice was steady. "I feared for Reginald, not for myself." Poirot paused, his eyes locking on Mrs. Graves. "But you, madame, The oil on your hands, the keys you hold, the crypt you locked, the rope you oiled. The blood on the rope, unknown, but your sleeve last night bore a fresh cut hidden under starch. Graves stiffened, her apron a shield. I'm no killer, sir. I serve this house. Poirot's smile was cold. You served Reginald, oui, but also Crawley. The serpent's key, the knife's etch, your husband, Baxter, works for him. You passed letters, oiled the rope, staged the bell to mask the shot. The room gasped, Graves's face paling. Edmund stood. Graves? She's just the housekeeper. Poirot raised a hand. Non, she is the serpent's hand. Reginald owed Crawley 10,000, unpayable. Baxter, Crawley's man, pressed him, but Reginald resisted, hiding the Chalice's trust. Graves, loyal to her husband, betrayed her master. She entered the study, using the spare key, argued with Reginald, his bruise, her grip. She shot him, locked the door, gagged the bell to fake the midnight toll. The glove, the silk, the pearl, planted to scatter blame. The codicil she stole but hid it poorly, fearing exposure. Graves's hands trembled, oil stains faint but damning. Lies! She whispered, but her voice broke. Hastings frowned. The blood on the rope, hers. Poirot nodded. She cut herself planting clues, but the rope betrayed her, a fresh wound concealed. The ladder, her escape, staged to mimic flight. He turned to Wilkins by the door. Inspector, her sleeve, check it. Wilkins, hesitant, lifted Graves's cuff, revealing a bandaged cut, blood seeping. She yanked her arm back, eyes wild. I didn't mean to. Baxter demanded it, said Crawley'd ruin us. Reginald wouldn't pay, laughed at the curse. I had to. Her confession spilled, a flood breaking a dam. Beatrice stood, pearls clattering. You killed him for money. Graves sobbed, collapsing. For survival. Baxter's in deep with Crawley. I had no choice. Poirot's voice was steel. You chose, madame. The bell's silence was your voice, but it sang your guilt. Wilkins cuffed her, her apron crumpling as she was led away. The family sat stunned, Lydia weeping, Edmund pale, Victor's cigarette falling, Millicent's rosary silent. Beatrice's voice was a whisper. It's over? Poirot nodded. The Chalice's trust is safe, madame. The serpent is caged. He turned to Hastings, his smile faint. The little grey cells, mon ami. They hear the bell's truth. Outside, the moors stretched free, the fog lifting as the abbey exhaled. The bell, ungagged, tolled once, loud, clear, final. As noon struck, Poirot and Hastings packed, the Rolls-Royce waiting. The family dispersed, their shadows lighter but scarred. Crawley next? Hastings asked, climbing in. Poirot lit a Gauloise, exhaling. He will slither away, but his hand is cut. Justice tolls. Hastings. The abbey faded behind them, its bell ringing for the dead and the living.